In this episode of Culture Conversations, we talk to Lee Merritt, a civil rights attorney and social justice activist dedicated to fighting for the victims of police brutality. He represents the families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, and he's calling for sweeping police reform.
Put your hands up, show me hands!
Yes, it was an overreaction by the Fort Worth PD.
And assess the defendant's punishment at 10 years imprisonment in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
This is a victory for Black people in America. The tide is going to change here.
Those 9 charges are malice murder, 4 counts of felony murder, and 4 felonies under which the predicates for the felony murder charges.
They realized it was unpopular to kill people because they're Black, so instead they started calling them criminals.
Jefferson's family is represented by nationally known civil rights attorney Lee Merritt.
Your background is so interesting to me. You're from right here in Southern California. You grew up in South Central, and you often credit the way you were raised, your proximity to gang culture as to what sparked your activism. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. When you're from where I'm from, when you're from LA or any inner city community, you quickly develop this group identity. This is my community, this is my hood, this is my responsibility. So as a kid, I grew up with this idea that it was my job to protect my community, to provide for my community, to teach my community, to be intimately involved in it. And I moved away from LA, I moved all over the country, and I quickly learned that community wasn't just South Central, it was a community of Black people in this country.
We're just in Kentucky with Breonna Taylor and Until Freedom. Marching. How was that?
So the protests that Until Freedom are engaged in, I think, are particularly effective. They're using a strategy from the 60s, which is kind of to fill up the jails, to overwhelm the jail system, to show the hypocrisy of, charging peaceful protesters with felonies, but not arresting the men who murdered Breonna Taylor in her bedroom or in her home.
We're gonna occupy the street, y'all, have a seat!
So there's some criticism of it, like personal criticism of it, because it's a strategy that appeals to the conscience of the oppressor, and they don't really have a conscience, right? So they don't see the hypocrisy of arresting 87 people and charging them with felonies and not arresting 3 officers who killed Breonna. They just don't see it. They think, you guys broke the law, you should go to jail, and they were doing their job, and that's what we pay them to do. However, to see, they're getting frustrated with the protests and the presence of Until Freedom. And so they've ramped up the violence because that's all they really know. And the last day I was there, I think they hit a protester with their car right in front of my brother. One guy, I posted about this and it sounded like a cliche-ish, but I looked in his eyes and you could tell he was out there having fun. Like he was there to hurt people and he was a cop, and people were just standing there peacefully. He lifted a high-powered pepper spray gun and shot somebody in the face just for standing there. And they won't face any consequences for that behavior because that's what they're being trained and encouraged to do.
Why is it taking so long to get justice in her case? The Attorney General in Kentucky just came back and said the ballistics reports, they're out from the FBI, but says there's additional analysis needed. Are they stalling?
They're clearly stalling at this point. The responsibility for bringing charges against the officers who killed Breonna was on the local district attorney. He instead brought charges against Breonna's boyfriend, Kenny, for protecting his home when he fired a shot out at the police officers. He found that those charges were untenable, so he had to drop them, but he was not inclined to bring charges against the officers, or he would have in the first place, as opposed to one of the victims. The case became politicized because of the movement that we're in a good way, that the people simply weren't just going to allow the DA to shirk his responsibilities, and pressure was put on Daniel Cameron to get involved. What I would have hoped he would have done at that point was to assign a special prosecutor like we did in Georgia, like the Attorney General did in Georgia, and she appointed Joyette Holmes for Ahmaud Arbery's case. In that case, as you saw, progressed fairly rapidly. Once that happened, there were 3 arrests. Those men are in jail. They're facing murder charges, and that prosecution is going on aggressively. Daniel Cameron, although same party, Republican, conservative, he had the hubris to think that it was his responsibility to do it himself. knowing that he's beholden to an electorate who doesn't want to see him prosecute police officers. And so now he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. He took on the responsibility himself. He didn't do what he should have done, which is appoint a special prosecutor. And now he's sitting on the case. It looks bad for him if he prosecutes the cops. It looks bad for him if he chooses not to. And so he's stalling.
It's a lot more life to live out here, man.
Right now, everyone is talking about Jacob Blake and him being shot 7 times in the back. And you just mentioned Ahmaud Arbery, and I think back to George Floyd, and I don't want to say it progressed quickly, but we saw something happen, sooner than later. And I wanted to know, why have there been no charges yet in the case against the officer who shot Jacob Blake?
It didn't happen that quickly in George Floyd. In fact, they made an initial arrest for something asinine, and after public pressure and more evidence, they brought the appropriate charges against all the officers involved. And it's still an uphill battle, as you know. There's no convictions in that case yet. And so I expect something similar for the case of Jacob Blake. It's going to be on Ben Crump and his team and the family and the activists in the Wisconsin community to force the powers to be to do their job. Unfortunately, we live in a country where justice it doesn't just happen for Black people. We have to fight for it. This is America, and Black lives, despite what has been trending, Black lives don't matter that much. And so we have to force them to recognize the inherent value of our lives.
Is there ever a time where shooting someone 7 times in the back is justifiable?
Officers are trained to shoot body center mass until the target drops to the ground. They are trained killers. Shooting him 7 times in the back, as long as he was still standing, was what he was trained to do. Now, does that make it right? Does that make it non-criminal? Not necessarily. We train cops to engage in really egregious, destructive, brutal behavior. So we do have to go back to the training. We do have to go back to who we're recruiting. Will they call it justifiable? Probably. Is it justifiable? Hell no.
Some people argue that police videos showing these killings, they're traumatic, but others argue that they help, put the officer away that committed the shooting. What do you say?
Yeah, there is trauma associated with this video. The reason we call police killings a lynching, the reason we put more emphasis on police shootings than, the shootings between 2 private citizens, is because it victimizes the entire community. It is state-sanctioned behavior. It's the Blake family who pays taxes in Wisconsin paid the cops to shoot Jacob in the back, and the vacation that they put them on, the administrative leave that they often put them on, is sponsored by the family. And so it is traumatic. Every time we see those videos, it's traumatic, but we want to see them, because if we don't see them, then they get to make up their own narrative. They could use their own justification. And there's parts that we have not seen in Wisconsin, and they're claiming now that Jacob was abusive and threatening and violent and all other things that we will never see, because we don't have that video, because those officers didn't wear the body-worn cameras that our taxpayers have paid for. And so I hate the videos, but we need those videos.
And on the other side of that, you have the 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse that killed 2 protesters there in Wisconsin. His legal team is now claiming self-defense. Will that hold up in court?
In American courts, probably, possibly. As a white male, who injured folks who are standing up for Black people, it will be difficult to prosecute this person in the American courts. They're not designed to punish people for prosecuting Black people, who our Constitution and our court systems barely recognize as human. And it created all kinds of defenses, legal defenses for people who do harm to Black people. We saw that again in Ahmaud Arbery's case, that they were allowed to claim self-defense, despite the fact that they ran after him, chased him down in a truck, that he was unarmed, that he tried to get away, and they shot him to death. They were the aggressors, but they still legitimately hung their hat on a claim for self-defense, and it left them free for 3 months after they murdered someone in the middle of the street. So should it prevail? No. Are there legal arguments that the prosecutor should be able to make successfully to defeat a defense claim? Yeah, because obviously he was the aggressor. Now they're going to claim that they chased it, that protesters chased him down the street and they were the aggressors. but it's after he engaged in illegal action first. He showed up with an illegal gun to a premise that he had no right to be on, that he claimed to be defending, and he shot someone and in defense of property that wasn't his on behalf of an owner who never asked him to do that using an illegal gun. All of that throws the self-defense out of the window. Will he try it anyway? Probably.
Lee, there's a case right here in California in our own backyard, the Tiana Errata case. For those who don't know, can you talk to us a little bit about her case and some of the charges she's facing?
Yeah, it's simple, really. Tiana was a protester, a protest leader, a young Black woman who was standing up against brutality in the system.
No police! No justice, no peace!
The powers that be were upset about her organization, about her effectiveness, about her voice. The claim is that she, the charges are something like held people hostage, that she gave terroristic threats. What she actually did was led a peaceful group of protesters onto a highway, which is a crime, right? If they wanted to charge her with that crime, that would be fine. Once she got onto that highway, people who were inconvenienced by the protesters' presence there became violent, became aggressive in their vehicles and their motion, and other people protected Tiana. She didn't participate in it. She didn't even know that it was going on. But when, someone tried to run over protesters, someone ended up on a hood, another person hit the back of the window with a skateboard, all unbeknownst to Tiana, all not under her direction. She, who's trained in nonviolence and organization, and told protesters to simply ignore agitators and interlopers. She has focused on love and light and all that other flowery stuff that the young activists are on. And I appreciate, but she is not the terrorist that they would like for us to describe her as. We will protect Tiana Errata and any other Black woman who wants to stand up for the life of her children, her future children, her family, and her community.
The work that you do has to be tiring. What are some of the highs and lows that you face as a civil rights attorney?
Well, I get to get into the fights that we all get frustrated about. So, the lows we all experience together. I didn't work Tamir Rice's case. I had no involvement in it, but those officers weren't indicted by a grand jury. Michael Brown, no indictment. Eric Garner, no indictment. Those are the lows that we all experience as a community. We're home saying, man, we must be completely unprotected because the law is now telling us that not only are our lives not meaningful, that they can be taken at a whim, that when it does happen, we don't even get our day in court. Not only do we lose the trial, but we don't even get our day in court. Those are our low moments, when a court tells me or my clients or my families that the courts are closed to justice for them. My highs are when the opposite happened, when we convicted Roy Oliver for the murder of Jordan Edwards, when we convicted Amber Geiger for the murder of Botham Jean, when we saw convictions and indictments in Kansas City. We're pushing for an indictment in San Antonio and Florida and Chicago. We have gradually seen the tide being turned, where officers are being held accountable. It takes more effort than it ought to. And it's, some of the most egregious circumstances. Tatiana Jefferson, for example, playing video games with her nephew, doing absolutely nothing wrong when she was killed. Got an indictment in that case. Those are my highs, to see the outcomes, to get, when people see my firm or my office involved, they think, you know what, things might change or might turn out differently this time. Typically, we know there won't be justice, but because of the work and experience that we've been able to do over the past few years, we've built up a trust with the community that they think that we might be able to get a different outcome.
Because the system doesn't need any more attorneys hoping to fix a broken system. They need radical lawyers, radical artists, radical people hoping to burn it down and build a new one.
With more than 4 million views across all social media platforms, 2 teachers who just wanted to motivate their students have now become an online sensation. Mrs. Williams teaches AP History, and Mrs. Evans teaches Economics and Journalism. Together, they've gone viral for their take on Jack Harlow's What's Poppin'.
What's poppin'? Brand new year and I'm locked in. Far as this teaching go, I am unreachable. I'm number 1 in your top 10, Miss Williams.
Congratulations, this video is everywhere. How does it feel?
It feels amazing. It feels amazing for so many people to have seen it, reached out to so many people around the world. It feels great.
On the South, we do more than rap. Doing all we can just to get you out the trap. Teaching up, lifting, motivating, and engaging our students, going straight to the top, no cap. Yeah.
I have the same feeling. Amazed is the word that I would describe, simply because of all the support we've gotten, not only from our family, friends, co-workers, administrators, but from all over the world.
What made you guys want to do this video? What was the inspiration behind it?
Well, it started 3 years ago. It was actually my first year teaching, and I actually did an end of the school year rap instead of a back to school rap. And I kind of got some students together, some of my cheerleaders, and I just wanted to celebrate my first successful year of teaching. And then I had got Newcomer of the Year award. So it was just a really exciting time for me. And then that following year, Mrs. Evans joined me at Monroe. We were already friends prior, and I asked her would she be interested, just based off of the feedback that I got from the first video, and I kind of wanted to keep it going. So I asked her, and she said yes, I would love to. And every year since then, we've been making them.
Who wrote those rhymes? That's what I want to know.
We both wrote our own rhymes. So Ms. Williams, she gave me a strict timeline. She said, okay, we have a week to get this completed, but you have 3 days to make your song. So we both, went our separate ways, wrote our raps, and then we came together and we performed our raps for each other. So she would say, I think you need to take this line out. And I would say, I think maybe you need to switch this word out. And we basically just critiqued each other to see what was going to pop.
Did you know you could rap like that?
Honestly, the first time I actually tried it, it was a Bodak Yellow Teacher Challenge that was going around on Facebook and Instagram. And I just decided to hop on. People were asking me to, do it. So I decided to do it. And I think that challenge I was like, oh, I actually sound pretty good.
My school is the best. There's no competition.
And you, Miss Evans?
Well, no, I didn't know that I could rap, but it helps that we're teachers, so we're able to change the diction in our voice. We're able to say the words that the kids know and that the kids will gravitate to. So I think just accompanied with the beat, our delivery, and then of course our cheerleaders in the video is what made everything turn out great.
And speaking of the cheerleaders and the students, how are they handling this newfound fame?
Oh, you can't tell them nothing right now. They are celebrities themselves. I promise you, as soon as they get a share on Instagram, they're like screenshotting, circling themselves out, and showing all their film that, just like, for example, Missy Elliott reposted the video. They're saying Missy Elliott reposted their video. So they are celebrity themselves.
And then as far as the students, we started school 2 Mondays ago. So as soon as we're logging in to teach virtually, our students are like, oh my God, Miss Evans, did you see how many views you got? Or Miss Williams, did you see Jack Harlow post on your, make a comment on your post? So they're really excited.
That's so amazing. You know what? And school's been in for a couple of weeks now. So how is it going? I know you both are teaching virtual. How are the students reacting?
Virtual learning is actually going really well. I actually prefer it. I don't prefer it because, of course, I love my students. I want to see my students, but I feel like it's the new future. This is something that we have to get adjusted to. But the students are, of course, loving it because it gives them a sense of independence. It also allows them to be held accountable, and especially because I teach 12th graders. So we're preparing them for the real world, especially the ones that are trying to go to college. This is something that they have to get used to. Of course, there are technical difficulties as far as maybe their camera isn't working or their mic isn't cutting on. But as overall, I feel like virtual learning is a great step to the new future.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Mrs. Williams? How's it going for you and your students?
It is actually going fantastic. I don't know why. Maybe because they're in the comfort of their own homes that they're actually engaging more. It could be us, I don't know, but they seem very engaged, answering questions, just really participating. So I don't know if it was because of that video, so they already felt comfortable with us, or if it was just completely just virtual learning. But the kids, I mean, they will say they would rather be face-to-face, but I think virtual learning is giving them a self of, responsibility, independence, and I'm loving it.
That green, that gold, that green, that gold, that green, that gold, tornadoes, let's go.
And that will do it for us. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, and keep the conversation going. Let us know how we're doing. Shoot us an email. We're at cultureconversations@foxtv.com.